Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Grand Finals bracket. This is going into eliminations round one. If you have not watched the first part where we went over the winners bracket, go and watch that now. Spoilers is what you can see here is where teams went. But now you can see the rest of the bracket. First up, we are leading in. I don't know how different our elimination round ones are actually going to be. I think they might
Yeah.
be different.
Well, let's see. The first one at 5:30 p.m. on November 1st. We have the Philadelphia Fusion versus the Houston Outlaws.
Oh yeah, it is
And
different because mine's the Gladiators. So
uh-huh.
yeah, Fusion Gladiators, Fusion Houston. I think this is pretty obvious who's losing this game.
Uh, yeah, sorry Philly fans. You got two options. Make it to second place
Don't
or
get knocked out
go out
immediately.
immediately.
I don't even
Yeah.
think
Wait.
Fusion's going to pick up a map against the Gladiators, and they might pick up a map against the Outlaws.
Well, they win against the Gladiators. Well, I better be putting all my bets in a second place finish then.
Yeah, if Fusion somehow find a way to beat the Gladiators in this kind of booking, yeah, Fusion are going for second place.
It sucks for the Fusion because it's hard to actually put an analysis on the Fusion when it's just I mean one they're
You know how
their team is
disappointing
kind
they
of
are.
disappointing. Yeah, how disappointing they are, but it's just such a meme for the Fusion to either be second place or just out of the tournament completely. There's almost no in between with most of these uh tournaments. I mean, I've seen the graphic they have on Watchpoint, and it's just an entire page of second place finishes, and it's like, oh my gosh, how have you not won anything?
It's like you know a man is loyal when he's stuck with you for 5 years, losing.
Yeah, and
Poor
gosh,
Carpe just wants to retire.
I really hope he doesn't retire after the season, and then
Get
Fusion
him,
somehow
get him a
win a
team
tournament.
built around him where he can win a goddamn title.
That's
The
what they're
man
trying
needs a
to do.
title.
But getting back on track, I think that Houston or
2029
Glads,
ain't the year that
they're
that's
probably gonna.
happening.
Yeah, Houston and Glads, I think. Glads probably would be a 3-0. I think Houston could probably go 3-1, but I'm probably gonna have it a 3-0 on my bracket. But I think Houston has more of a possibility of going close than the Gladiators do.
So next up is a match that I know that we both have. And I think that we both have as the same: London versus the
Uh, um,
Spark.
no, wait, what did you say?
London versus Hangzhou.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Oh well.
I have Spark, but the Mayhem is up next.
That's an exciting matchup. I really like. I think that that one has a lot more to talk about than London. Because Mayhem is one of those teams that's been really inconsistent this year, as has the Hangzhou Spark. Like this could be a point in time where we see, are the Spark really just that fallen off and that washed after their first two tournaments that they'll lose to Florida Mayhem.
I mean, I definitely think so. I have them winning this match. The Battle of the Pink per se, and yeah, I really hope this one does come true because Mayhem Spark definitely does seem like one interesting, and I have it going Mat 5 because it's going to be a very unexpected banger. These are two very uh dark horses that just so happen to be very bright in their cover scheme.
Very pink. I mean, the Florida's more
But
black, but they have pink in their
yeah,
color scheme.
yeah. Uh, I mean, looking at analysis though, uh, I think Mayhem actually have been the better players, especially looking at the Spark support situation. I mean, Mayhem have Sir Majed, who's a very good Rookie of the Year candidate as of right now. I mean, that place is almost guaranteed to go to someone right now. Not someone, but a particular player, I feel. But he's definitely in contention, I feel, for that award. So I think Mayhem have better supports. Uh, Damage as well. They have Hydron still. Uh, I'm pretty sure they still have Xe, and they can pretty much play a lot. Someone I think is better than Sparks main tank, or just tank in general, because we only have one. I honestly forgot who it was.
Bernard and Gouchway.
Oh yeah, I was like, I
Sparks
think
does
it's
have
Gooshway.
two.
I don't remember if he left or not.
Yeah, they don't
Uh,
play. They don't play smart though. Spark has been a really disappointing team, which really sucks because I think that if this were kickoff Clash Spark, we would be seeing a very exciting experience for Spark fans. But we don't live in a reality where happy things happen. Spark, I think, are definitely losing this matchup against the Mayhem, but I don't think it's going to be as close. Honestly, I think that this is going to be a 3-1 at most for the Mayhem. Like, the Mayhem, like, checkmate versus, like, Elfie. Like, or not Elfie. Is it Elfie? Honestly, I don't know much about the Spark anymore. I kind of, like, backed myself as far away from the Spark as I possibly could.
yeah, I mean, I know there's Shy, which I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
Shy and either Xe or Hydron duo would be really fun to watch, but I don't think we'll get to watch much of that because the non-damage part of Spark would probably just get rolled by the non-damage part of Mayhem.
yeah, like, the DPS line is where it's really highly contested, I feel like, for both Spark versus Mayhem. But someone versus Gouchway or Bernard. I mean, even if it were 5v6 and Spark could use both Gouchway and Bernard, I think someone would still just topple straight over them. Uh, as well as Sir Majed and Animo easily being out Neko and Teru, or even if they bring in Super Rich and Irony. If we get Super Rich and Irony, I mean, maybe, but regardless, it doesn't look good for the Spark. As the same, I feel like the same goes for them against the London Spitfire. Uh, I think it's going to be the exact same situation, pretty much the exact same explanation, but just replace everything I said about the Mayhem and replace it with with London. The coordinated London player and name. Do you? I feel like you probably agree with this, right?
Yeah, I think that Mayhem are going to be Spark. I think London have no problem as well.
So following that up into the losers round one, we have for me the Atlanta Rain versus the Florida Mayhem. Uh, Rematch of round one of winners. I think this is still going to go in the same way. I think Rain are easily going to be having this in the exact same fashion as they did in round one of winners.
Well, in my match, it's a bit differently. I think Atlanta Reign are also going to be having this L because they're facing the Soul Dynasty. Uh, Really no contention, especially when you look at the tanks. Hawk versus Smurf is literally no contest. Smurf blows Hawk out of the water. Uh, and what if we see a surprise Gator? If he blows Hawk out of the water, I would
If Gator gets
shiver.
played, I
You
think that's just going to
know,
be a sign that the Rain are giving up.
yeah. Uh, but support line. Uh, Honestly, oh yeah, OG and Violet or Ultraviolet. It's an alright support duo, but you're facing Creative and Vindame. The
Creative
uh
and Vindame, you
Easy-
mean Eris and Vindame?
oh yeah, that's right. They swapped. They're
Yeah.
practically the same player. Or it's basically a side grade. Anyways, yeah, those are two really good players. So that's yeah, I think the Dynasty beat the Reign in quite a convincing fashion, sending the Reign to a disappointing but early elimination. But I mean, what were you gonna do when you face like literally the top team in losers, or one of the top teams in losers? That seems like a horrible
S-
way uh uh, to end your season.
Speaking of facing top tier threats in losers, Toronto versus Dallas. Clearly a 3-0 in the favor of the Dallas Fuel. Uh, Toronto kind of fell apart this in the Countdown Cup. I think that they really just couldn't find their footing in this meta, which is really weird because you would think that this is a metagame built for players like Hotba, who last year was one of the best Zarya and Diva players in the league. Like, this is such a metagame fit for the Toronto Defiant that, like, you would expect them to be one of the best, yet somehow it just doesn't work because the Toronto Defiant just can't succeed. They're just as bad as the Philadelphia Fusion at this point.
Yeah, they're literally destined to be mid. And are you done with yours? Because I could segue to mine.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
Toronto, nothing more to talk about Toronto.
yeah. I was gonna say, I also had the mid Ronto Defiant in mind, and they're gonna be facing another team that many would consider mid, but the London Spitfire are, uh, well, they can beat a mid team like the Toronto Defiant. Uh, I'm pretty sure I stated that Toronto was probably the weakest team in here, and as such, I think the weakest team will probably be knocked out in elimination round one. And they might take a map of the Spitfire since it is, the Spitfire. Um, they're not known for like sweeping through all their opponents, but Toronto Fine just has to go in round one. I, you know, they did make some impressive runs. I will admit that, but grand finals is just not the time to do it when everyone's at their A game.
So, segueing into that, we have another London match for me. We have the London Spitfire and the LA Gladiators. Clearly a victory for the Gladiators. Although, personally, I want to give London a map here. I think that London is a team that has been able to pull out some shocking performances. They're definitely not going to get close to a victory. They're definitely not going to get close to a map 5. But I think London's going to be able to pull off an upset map off of the Gladiators. Mostly off of the back of possibly a shoddy performance. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
that could be the case. Did I have who did I? Oh, I had them facing Atlas. I thought I was facing Spitfire for a second. Ugh. Um, yeah. I pretty much agree with all the words you said. Uh, they could take a map off. Like they're not the worst team in here, but I don't see them going any farther, and I think it's much more likely that they get 3-0'd, but uh, it could be like one of those random control maps, where the one team looks surprisingly good on control, and then the ever so more dominant team wins the other three maps. Could be like one of those, so who knows?
Although I do see there actually being a possibility for London to pull out a map 5, and that is if they can get Colosseo on push, in which they can play the shoddy comps that they love on Colosseo, which could give them a possible victory. But I think just playing not space, playing Reiner would just, I think Reiner would just completely bowl over that comp.
Mhm. Uh, this is start of elimination round two, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that would mean that my match is completely different, and while you have a relatively top team in yours, I have the Mayhem versus the Houston Outlaws. We're still not getting to the point where every team is uh, top dogs. I think that comes much later, maybe in the next round. But as for now, this game could be. It's very interesting, right? Like we saw this, I think it was last week ago,
2 weeks.
and 2 weeks, yeah, something like that. And the Mayhem did take a W over the Outlaws, but this is grand finals. Everyone's gonna be playing differently. Uh, I think I know what your take is on this match. Uh, so go ahead. Why don't you get it over with?
Houston was sandbagging 2 weeks ago. This is an easy win for the Outlaws.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were gonna say. This is where I think
Don't you dare.
Houston's past performances in
Don't you dare.
the previous seasons come. And so that is why
Using
I
my own
think the
argument against me,
Mayhem
no.
can be a dark horse and get to elimination round three in a close, but ultimately the Mayhem take a upset over the Outlaws. Sorry, but
That's BS and you know it.
this it is it's very much more uh contended than I think you feel. Uh, you know fully well that I do that trends tend to stick, like Fusion going out in basically the first round in every tournament, or they get second, but
Let's just move on,
it's
because
all
I'm
about the
sad.
trends. Sure.
Uh, Atlanta versus Dallas. This is the losers final from last year's grand finals, and it's gonna go the opposite way. Dallas is gonna win this. I think this is gonna be closer than what most people would expect. Atlanta has been a team that's been able to perform when their backs are against the wall, but I mean, again, when it comes down to it, it's going to be down to Hawk versus Hanbin, which we've established this before. There's a reason Hanbin is a MVP candidate and Hawk is not. It is because Hanbin is one of the greatest Overwatch League players of all time, not just one of the best tanks. And we're gonna be seeing that on display here as he's gonna be the true difference maker, which gives Dallas the upper hand to close out the the matchup versus of Atlanta versus Dallas.
Uh, yeah, I have to agree with you there. Uh, it probably might be a little bit more one-sided in Dallas. Maybe I think it'll be. Uh, I think it probably has more of a possibility of being a 3-0. These teams seem like they're on different levels, but mm, yeah, Dallas probably win in the end. Doesn't really matter how they win.
Uh,
But
oh yeah, your losers round two match.
uh, yeah, round two. Uh, I'm pretty sure it is Seoul Dynasty versus the London Spitfire. I think we all know where this is going. The Dynasty are going to 3-0 the Spitfire because it is kind of a mismatch, in my opinion. Uh, the Dynasty kind of have the edge in every position. I don't. I mean, you could argue maybe one person on the Spitfire is better than one person on Soul Dynasty, but in every role, I feel Soul Dynasty outclasses one Spitfire.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't even think London's gonna take him out. Like I said earlier in the previous video, talking about Shock. I think Shock versus London. London's not even gonna take a point at all. It'll be like 3-0. It'll be 2-0, 3-0, 3-0. Easy, done. Maybe even an hour long match. An hour long match. an hour long match. Maybe even 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 an hour long match. Moving on now, we have for me it is Houston versus Gladiators. This is where it truly comes down to what do I predict? Do I predict with my heart or my gut? Uh, Both have led me down really incorrect paths in the past. So really, it's kind of a hard one for me to predict because it's Houston. It's my boys. It's the team that I'm fully behind 100% versus the team that has been one of the most dominant teams in playoffs.
Well, okay. What do you think about it?
Uh, I'm going with my heart. I'm going with the Houston Outlaws in a map 5. Uh, I feel like I can justify this. Uh, Merit is all right. So Merit is one of the best sojourns in the league, better than Happy. Kevster is the only thing that I feel is better when it comes to comparing to one of the players between both the teams. Pelican, one of the greatest Genjis as well.
Uh,
Kevster is just a slight bit better. Reiner versus Dante. Reiner is a great diva player, but at the same time, Dante is one of the best, one of the better Zarias, and one of the better divas in the league right now. And I think that he's just, like I said, with Kevster being slightly ahead of Pelican, I think that Dante is slightly higher than Reiner. Uh, Lastro and Creative, a really underrated support duo that has a lot of potential, and they are going against Shu and Funny Astro and Skewed, an absolutely terrifying trio of players. But I think where the Gladiators are going to fall is the fact that it's the surprise factor.
you know what? I'm gonna be honest. You made a somewhat compelling argument that you started to make me believe that Houston
Up until
could,
I got to the supports.
yeah, all until you got the supports. But you started to make me believe that there is a
The
possibility
supports
that
can only
Houston could
carry
beat
you so
the
far.
Gladiators. But it's just, I don't know. It feels wrong for Houston Outlaws to beat the Gladiators. I think
It
your
does.
argument, you made a really good argument as to why they could make a really close game, like a map 5, even with a draw in there or something like that. You made an argument for something like that, but I think to say that they beat them is, uh, it could happen. You made a very good argument for that, I feel. You brought up some analysis and all that. Yeah, they could go either way. I don't want to sway you from one opinion for the other. Uh, but yeah. And plus, being beaten by the Gliders, or being beaten by the Outlaws, I don't know. It is a very, would be a nice reference to their history if they were to get knocked out in the tournament, before they could actually do anything.
So what about your round 3 match one?
Round 3, match 1, that is uh, it's easily going to be a much more decisive victory. The Dragons versus the Mayhem, and although Mayhem had a chance against their previous opponent, not really against the new one that they have. It's probably gonna be another 3-0. It's more of a mismatch than anything. Uh, the Dragons beat. I'm trying to think of any role. Maybe Sir Majed is close to beating out Isayaki. That's really the only player I think who can, uh, be better than any of the Shanghai Dragons player, and Mayhem,
You know,
they
I
do
actually
not
do
have
want
that
to.
carry.
I want to contest that statement with a something that sounds really baffling to say, but checkmate. I think comparing checkmate to either Who Are You or Fleta, which is baffling to say. Uh, checkmate is better, especially when it comes to the Genji, than both Who Are You and Fleta.
Yes, if anything, that's debatable. I don't think that's clear cut. Maybe Fleta, but I think Kyoryu has done a decent job in the Genji. Which, if he's getting played, that's probably what he'd be playing. But yeah, I guess Checkmate is close to skill level between those two. But as I was getting to before, Mayhem doesn't really have that uh, carry player like the top five teams generally have. Uh, they don't have a lip on their team, which the other team kind of does. They kind of have the lip. Uh, Probably one of the greatest Sojourns of all time. Probably one of the greatest Sombras of all time ever. Uh, it's not going to be easy for Mayhem. They're going to need to have someone be a real playmaker if they want to even take a map. So the Dragons are probably going to win this one.
Yeah, pretty clearly. Uh, moving on to Elim round 3. Match 2 is the San Francisco Shock versus Dallas Fuel. Uh, I think that this is a Dallas Fuel victory. Uh, Again, just like everything I talked about with Shock versus Gladiators in the winners bracket, holds true with the Shock in the Fuel. Uh, when it comes to playoff success, Dallas has been a lot better than the Shock. And it was also shown in the Summer Showdown where the Dallas Fuel picked up the victory over the Shock there. I think it's going to hold true here. I think that the Shock are going to fall to the Dallas Fuel, mostly off the back of Hanbin and, uh, yeah, I gotta say probably just off of Hanbin himself. Maybe Sparkle.
Maybe.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think I'm going to kind of go over that game as the same as my game. It's different. I have the Soul Dynasty against the Shock, but I generally have the same opinions on that game that I do on this one. I think we're probably going to see a Shock that we have not seen before. I think Coach Krusty is probably one of the greatest minds in Overwatch League history. He's probably the best coach outside of Coach Moon, and I think he's cooking up something that could easily, you know, he's working as a really talented group of rookies, and that hasn't stopped Krusty from completely dominating grand finals before. Uh, so I think that in both cases, the Seoul Dynasty and the Dallas Fuel, they can probably, with enough like mental, preparation and like just sheer fortitude and proper, because that is the Shock's carry proper. I mean, that's what everyone's been talking about. To be a top team, you had to have the one carry, and proper is definitely that. But the rest of the Shock don't match up that bad. I think the Shock actually beat out in supports, I feel, of the Dynasty, or at least it's very close. I think they're definitely better in the flex support option, and I mean Vindem's a bit better on uh, maybe Lucio than Violet, but Violet's not that far off either. So contested support line. Uh, I mean Smurf, I feel like they get diffed and tank, but proper makes up in the DPS. I feel like it's definitely going to be a lip situation where I feel like uh, the DPS is going to be at the one that carries the rest of the team on their back with the tank.
So
And I
here,
feel like, that also goes with the Dell Fuel since they're essentially in the same boat to where the tank is kind of the carry.
Here's where I do disagree. I think that Seoul does have honestly a much better shot at beating. The Dynasty has a much better, uh, possibility to beat the Shock than you're giving them credit for because they do have a carry and a tank in Smurf, but you're
Yeah, that's
also
what I'm saying.
forgetting what else they have. They have playoff profit. They have two carries. They have both Smurf and Profit. So there's definitely a more likely scenario that Seal is walking out of that match as the victor.
Maybe, but even playoffs profit like arguably hasn't been as good, this season. I feel like some of the players have caught up to the level of playoff profit, you know. Maybe in 2018, 2019, uh, you know, he's almost uncontested in playoffs, but uh, I think now is, everyone's kind of caught up to the level of playoffs profit. Not really everyone, but like, I think someone like Proper could manage playoffs profit.
But could he manage playoff Profit and Smurf?
And Smurf. Uh, well, that's what you got the rest of the shock there for.
Just saying, I don't think Shock's making it out of this round. Speaking
Let's
of
see.
teams not making out of this round, the Dallas Fuel are taking on the Houston Outlaws once again in Elimination Round 4 for me. Uh, Battle for Texas 2, Electric Boogaloo, is going the same way as the first time around. Actually, I do think it's going to be a little closer. I think it's going to be map 5. Because Dallas is in winner this winner go home situation, as are the Houston Outlaws, which is why I also think they have that X factor against the Gladiators. I think they're going to be carrying that in again against the Dallas Fuel. Going into I think this is going to be probably the most exciting match, especially if this late into the tournament, because both of these teams are fighting for so much. Both of these teams have had to climb such large hills after being so garbage for so long that they're finally here at this opportunity. Dallas has done this before, and this is all. They're about to get to that spot they were at last year in grand finals, and I think Houston's going to take that opportunity away from them in a very close map 5 finish.
Well, I also am at 5 finish, but I think this is the match I'm ever so excited for. This is going to be the battle of the minds, the battle between Coach Krusty and Coach Moon. Let me tell you, this is going to be the Light Yagami versus L of Overwatch League. Because no other coach has ever come. I mean, Coach Fresh has been very good, but nothing compared to what Coach Krusty and Coach Moon had pulled off on their respective teams. Uh, as for the players, though, uh, very even. I think Void and Kaluge are definitely going to have a very even tank battle. Uh, Supports, I think, are very even as well. Um, can't really think of I mean, maybe in like a double flex situation, Shock are probably better, but then because they can flex with that. But I think they probably have the better Lucio on the Dragons, so that might end up being a factor. But what I'm really looking forward to is the battle between the DPS, because on one hand you have Lip, and on the other hand you have Proper. I think it's safe to say that, you know,
Lip is the MVP
uh,
and is going to win.
uh, uh, I think no. What I was gonna say is that I think Lip easily beats any of the hit scan that Shocker gonna throw at them. Uh, I think No one on Shock, specifically Kilo. I don't think Kilo has the mechanics to beat Lip. But same could be said for the Dragons. I don't think anyone has mechanics on characters like that could be popular like Genji or Tracer, because I don't think they can have Lip on, multiple roles, which will probably need him for the Sojourn role, if I'm gonna be honest, or maybe the Sombra role. But like, I think the Shanghai Dragons are having the same problem as Philadelphia from, I think it was what, like,
Last year, honestly.
yeah, last year when they had to decide where they wanted to place Carpe. Do you want them on the uh, hard hit scans like your Ash or something like that, or do you want them on the Tracer? I think there might be a problem where the Dragons want to place Lit, because he's easily a much better player than the rest of the two. And I think San Francisco Shock might pull out their biggest secret weapon in Striker. I think this is where the Battle of the Minds comes in, because I think Striker, he didn't really have that great of a reintroduction, but we've seen what he can do on things like Tracer. He, everyone was saying like Prophet is the best Tracer. I think that Striker at his prime could probably beat Proper at Tracer, and so they could have maybe Proper on Sojourn, and then maybe a
See, now,
rejuvenated Striker on
I
Tracer,
don't.
and that would
I
make
think there's a bit of a problem there. I don't think this. I think that the Shock versus the Dragons is not going to be about a Sojourn. I think it's going to come down to Tracer and Sombra as the damage lines. We've seen in the Countdown Cup, Shock was really playing, proper striker with them on Tracer and Sombra. Mostly for the fact that, they wanted to play proper on the Tracer and they didn't want Striker playing on Sojourn. They had him on Sombra. So, but now then they kind of shifted to switching those roles, and it seemed to work a lot better for them. And again, Lip being able to play on either Tracer or Sombra, and then have Fleta come in on the opposite would be what I feel like the Dragons would look forward to. Because I think that this is going to be more about which team has the more effective Sombra, and having both Proper and Lip on that hero is what would be most beneficial for the team rather than having that Sojourn. Because while Sojourn is one of the most effective DPS right now, uh, I feel like the utility that Sombra and Tracer bring to both of these teams' playstyles trumps anything Sojourn could bring to the teams.
that's your opinion, that's my opinion. And that's what I think. I still think the Shocker are gonna win. I don't know if I said that, but that's who I think is gonna win because of the secret weapon. So that'd be funny. But
I do have to
dragons don't
disagree
go out
there.
without a fight.
I do gotta disagree. I do gotta give it to the Dragons in that kind of matchup because, I mean, again, Proper versus Lip, whether it be on Sojourn or Sombra or Tracer, I think Lip is just better. Same thing with against Striker. Like, maybe having, like, possibly like Sombra Genji for Shanghai with Who Are You on the Genji is definitely a possibility. But
But
this
you
is.
have to also think that there's also a mystery factor with the shock because uh we're not gonna really know like what the shock. I don't think like what they're playing on their final uh match of the season. I don't think that's what they're gonna be really playing in this tournament. I think they realize that if they want to win, they're gonna have to bring something else out uh that most teams aren't expecting. And I think there's not really a lot that Shanghai can do that is like that. They're not, I don't think they're gonna have the same surprise factor because
I got it.
everyone
Shanghai's
knows
playing
that.
Doomfist. Not Shanghai.
Okay,
Shock is playing Doomfist.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, uh, I don't think Dragons are gonna have the same because you know what Dragons' game plan is. It's let Lip play a character and he is going to go off. So I think maybe it's about shutting Lip down and seeing how the Dragons react to that. Maybe that's how they win. Uh, Definitely winnable. No pun intended.
With that, we go into grand finals day as we enter.
Wait, what? That's
Yeah,
elimination round five.
yeah, it's
Oh,
on
day.
Yeah, it's on the same day.
Why don't they have it on Saturday? I don't know.
We have grand finals day as we enter into elimination round five. For me, it's Houston versus Seoul. For you, it is Shanghai versus who?
It is Shock versus Gladiators.
Oh, Shock versus Gladiator. I'm
Oh.
Shock Gladiators, Houston, Seoul. Two very different matchups. And for me, I mean, wasn't Seoul? Yeah, Seoul for me. So Seoul for me was the one that took out Houston in this. Seoul was the one who took out Houston in my winners bracket, and now here they meet once more in the finals of losers bracket. Winner go home scenario. Can Houston finally get their moment? Now, this is more
It's
so a salty run
uh,
back of what happened last year for me, where I went against my heart. I went against it and decided to not have the Atlanta Reign make it to grand finals to face off against Shanghai. And it bit me because they made it. This year, I'm going with my heart. Houston is winning this in a map 5 scenario. It is going to be very close, but I want my happy moment in grand finals.
yeah, but
I
I can see a universe where that does happen if hypothetically they were, which I think it's more or less uh unlikely that they make it to elimination round five over them beating this whole dynasty. I feel like beating this whole dynasty, I think that's something they can do on like a good day and like on a sole bad day because there's a possibility one of these teams don't show up, and that possibility could be this whole dynasty. You never know. Uh, you know, uh, on most positions, they generally don't look as great on, like, Smurf is obviously better at tank than Dante, and they got Playoffs Prophet, they have Vindame and Eris. It is kind of a stacked roster, but Seal has been known to uh, fail in playoffs, like that one time. Shoot. Against the Spark in one of the tournaments. I forget what it was called. Everyone was expecting to win that one, and yet they they didn't even win against any team. So we'll see where it goes, but that is my argument for them winning. Do I think that would happen? No, not really.
I have no reason for why I picked Houston other than I want my two teams to make it to the grand finals.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, when you're defending Houston, they do have Pelican, who's rookie of the year from last year. He is a really good Genji, and Merritt has been putting some stats on the Sojourn. Maybe not as good as someone like Lip, but it it probably is the best Sojourn in the lobby at that point.
I mean, Mara's
Uh,
been the equal to Lip, honestly. Like if you looked at their stats, I remember going into the Summer Showdown uh, tournament. They were showing the Overwatch League was showing what Merit's like stats were on Sojourn in the season so far. He was number one in most of those statistics. In the ones that he wasn't, he was number two. So Merit is the equal to Lip when it comes to that Sojourn.
yeah, but I mean, stats don't really catch like decision making and uh, you know, uh, placement and all that. They're more just to show how good the mechanics are sometimes. I mean, sometimes. I mean, I guess deaths you can technically say count as like placement, but you know, that's just hard numbers. I think Lip is kind of the smarter player between this, but this is Houston versus Seoul, not Houston versus Shanghai.
That comes later.
Did I already talk about my elimination five? No, I didn't. Uh, oh, this is another tough one. It is Los Angeles Gladiators versus the San Francisco Shock. Uh, hmm. Going through, let's see, my previous thing, I had the Shock losing 1-3 to the Gladiators. Uh, I think that if Shock are able to beat the Dragons, I think they are able to beat the Gladiators. I think Krusty is like probably one of the only coaches in the league, probably one of the three that are able to learn and adapt to teams throughout tournaments. And I think we saw glimpses of that in the what was it, like Countdown Cup, I think. Uh, yeah, or some it was either or not Countdown Cup. Oh shoot, Summer Showdown or Midseason Madness. I forget which one they went, but they went all the way to the grand finals. I think,
It was Summer Showdown.
yeah, Summer Showdown. They went all the way up to the grand finals, and they were able to beat some opponents that some people didn't think they were able to beat, and they made it to the
Didn't they
finals.
lose to
You know,
Dallas both times?
what was that?
Didn't they lose to
Uh,
Dallas both times they faced them though?
ye it might have been something like that or something. I don't know. I know, one of them, they made it to both Summer Showdown and Midseason Madness, right? Uh,
So the finals, yeah.
uh, yeah. So that just
Midseason
kind of
Madness,
shows that.
they also lost the Gladiators both times. So if Krusty's able to adapt to him, why is it that when the Shock lose in a tournament, why is it against the same team both times?
Well, that was because they're better. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. They were just kind of a better team. But something
I feel like the
like,
same thing goes here.
well, okay, it is the Gladiators. They're not a better team than. I think all the top five teams are generally in the same range, but like in the what was it? I think Summer Showdown, that was like a purely Junker Queen meta, and Hanbin was literally unrivaled on that character. So yeah, uh, that's just what I think about it. So I think they can win against Gladiators. They do have, uh, looking at each of the roles, they stack really nice together. Uh, so that is just what I think. Uh, yeah, that goes for me. I think probably gonna be really close. I think I'm gonna give it a 3-1 because making them at five would be really stereotypical. So that's just my winners round five.
It's going into grand finals now. My heart is happy as I see Shanghai against the Houston Outlaws. Uh, man, this is clearly a Shanghai victory. I I'm going with the trend that uh you're just gonna get swept in the grand finals.
Well,
You either sweep or you get swept, and this is gonna be Shanghai sweeping the Houston
I,
Outlaws.
unless you're the Seoul Dynasty, don't forget about them.
Yeah.
They
But I mean,
made
I do want to give some logic to this because I think that there is a lot of sustenance to this matchup. I think it has potential to be a lot closer than people would expect. Because you just hear Shanghai Dragons versus Houston Outlaws, you're immediately like, Shanghai's winning this, right? Again, Merit and Lip on Sojourn. They're equal. Like when it comes to their stats and their performances, both of these players are they're equal when it comes to Sojourn. Pelican versus Who Are You and Fleta. I have to give it to Pelican there when it comes to the Genji. Sombra and I mean Pelican Sombra versus Lips, or is definitely a Lip victory there. But when it comes to uh, I mean really any of the other Shanghai Dragons players, Pelican beats them out. Dante versus Void is a bit of a hard one to say. Uh, because they do both have their shining moments. They both have their moments, and I think that's probably the closest one. I mean, again, Izuyaki and Lee Jae Gong, one of the best support duos in league history. Really hard to beat them. But again, this year it seems like Lee Jae Gong and Izuyaki haven't been as dominant of a duo as say season two or not season two, season three.
Season 3.
Uh, they've definitely kind of eased off of their true dominance of teams. So there's definitely possibility for uh, Creative and Lastro to be able to beat out the Dragons support line. Like that's the thing is that like I want to say that this is gonna be a close one, and in reality, I kind of want to give it to Houston. Like, you have to think like what I
Well,
said.
let me just say something. Hear me out. Houston do win this thing, and they do it in the same thing. You could be headed to $5,000 thanks to Houston, because I don't think many people are going with the Houston to grand finals. That would put you in a really good chance if they do win. If you don't, you could kiss $5,000 goodbye, but they have a much better chance of getting $5,000 than if you were to just pick someone obvious like the Dragons or.
You convinced me. But I'm not gonna make it a 4-0. I don't think it's gonna be a sweep for Houston. I'm giving it a 4-2. I think that it's definitely gonna be a heavily contested matchup. A lot more contested than a lot of people would expect. Because again, it's Shanghai versus Houston. You don't expect much out of this. But it's just a fun match that just seems like it would be an absolute banger, and I think it's going to be.
Ooh. Speaking of bangers, we have the Dallas Fuel versus the San Francisco Shock.
Banger.
For banger, banger.
Dallas
He
win that
says
easy.
says the person that has the literal sweep in their grand finals. Anyways, I'm not gonna debate about that. I think this has a real opportunity to be our first Map 7 grand finals. Beating the Seoul Dynasty's record of 2 maps. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, didn't yeah London swept Philly, didn't they, in inaugural season? I don't remember that score.
Pretty sure they did. Shock swept Vancouver, and then the Dragons sweep Rain, if I'm not mistaken. But then the Dynasty, they took 2 maps off the Shock. No one thought they were gonna take any maps, so that was cool. I think the grand finals could be the same. I was like, oh, no one's gonna take maps off the field, or no one's gonna take maps off the Dragons. But I feel like, regardless of who makes it, uh, I mean, it's gonna be, I feel, one of the top 5 making it, and either way, they're gonna have a really close match. I really don't see a sweep with how many top teams we have contending. I mean, like, look at last year. Last year was like, oh, it's Shanghai Dragons winning it, and everyone had Shanghai Dragons picked, and oh my goodness, they won in a sweep because everyone knew they're gonna win. But this year, I don't think anyone can confidently say that one team is winning it and one team is. Well, I mean, obviously one team is winning it by technically, but like You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
With that
Also,
being said, I never said I was gonna win. I think it all. As much as I want to do it, uh, I'm picking the fuel. Screw it. They
you're
are
finally
my
wising
favorites
up.
to win, and as much as I want to do uh the MVP curse of having the MVP not win the actual grand finals, uh to under the feel have accomplished so much this season, and although they don't have as many titles this season as Gladiators do, that happened mostly in the beginning of the season, and that almost has nothing to do with how grand finals is. And I think the Fuel, in my opinion, have looked the best recently. I think, you know, I think that a lot of people would probably disagree with me. They either think like the Dragons or uh, the Gladiators or maybe even the Shock. Not really, because Shock looks better in the first half and the second half, I feel. They're still contenders, and that's why they have them going to uh, a map 7 with the Fuel in the grand finals. But at the end of the day, Hanpin is literally the best player, period. He's the best player in any game, I feel. That's probably a lie, but is I mean the tanks, it's literally a perfect meta for Hanbin right now. Z Diva and Zarya, and they don't even have Sigma, and I mean you could play they have like Sigma in the meta, and like he's one of the best Sigmas too. It's less of like, oh, this is a stacked meta for Hanbin. It's more of just like Hanbin's hero pool is so good that he can be good in like any meta. Because if this was suddenly like a Junker Queen meta and people started like discovering that Junker Queen was good, Hanbin would tear through the grand finals too. Like it doesn't matter like what off tank it is, even what tank, Hanbin would generally destroy the grand finals. It's like I feel like he must get MVP for this, surely. Maybe I don't know, man, but I just think Fuel really deserve this grand finals win.
I do agree with you. I think that this is definitely their time. Uh, if history would have been true, last year would have been their time. And 2 years ago would have been Shanghai's time. But you know what? The Shock like to ruin a lot of things. And they're not ruining this. The Dallas Fuel are going to be beating the
You know
Shock.
what? You convinced me. I'm making it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so Dallas are winning. I do think that it could be a map 7. So, I mean, I think definitely in that matchup, Dallas has it. I mean, I've had the match what twice I think, and both times I've had the Fuel beat the Shock. So I mean, I obviously agree with that sentiment that Dallas would be winning grand finals at that point.
I do generally think it's just a Hanbin diff. Like I feel like if they had Fearless playing, I would have easily given it to the Shock in like a less dominant like fashion. Or like I'd have probably given it into like a 4-1 Shock if Fearless was the one who was playing. Because without Hanbin, Fuel look lost, I feel. The few matches where Fearless had played, it's a different team playing on the field.
So that truly does it for season 5, 5v5. Uh, yeah. So what are your thoughts generally? You know, actually, I want to actually do that as like a separate thing. What are your thoughts on how this like? What are your expectations out of this grand finals? Like do you expect it to be as exciting as you're predicting it to be, or do you think that there's a lot more likability, that it's a lot more one-sided?
I think after winners round 3, that's when it becomes less exciting until grand finals, or even winners round 3, basically, because that's when because we're just gonna start whittling down the top teams into elimination, and then they're just gonna take care of business. And I think by that point we'll know like, okay, this team's probably gonna go to the grand finals. As of right now, we don't know, but I think like by Wednesday, uh, we'll probably be like, okay, yeah, they're going.
Yeah, Wednesday's definitely going to be where we see who's the top teams, I guess. Uh, Overall, I think that this season's really been great, and coming up to this grand finals has been probably the most excited I've been for grand finals. Uh, I mean, sure, last year I was really excited because I mean, like you had Dallas, Atlanta, and Shanghai, but this year you have Dallas, Shanghai. I mean, you also had Shock last year, so I guess you had four. But this year you have those uh, three without Atlanta, Seoul, Gladiators, and even to a degree the Houston Outlaws that all have a shot at winning. Like half of the teams that are in the grand finals or that are in playoffs right now have a shot at making it. That's like the most exciting thing you can think of when it comes to playoffs. I like it really hasn't been anywhere like that since inaugural season, where you had teams like Boston and Valiant, Excelsior, Spitfire, Fusion, and blanking on the other team I was thinking of here.
Nixel?
I already said Nixel. Uh,
Oh,
which actually, speaking of the grand finals of inaugural season, it was technically 6-1 because they played a. It was a best of three. Uh, Matchup, whereas like they played one series and then they played another series. London won both of them. Uh, the first series was 3-1. Second series was 3-0. So 6-1, a 6-1. So Dallas is the Dallas. Seal is the only one that has been able to pull off something like that. Also, it was the Gladiators as well. Basically, every team in grand finals, I think, in inaugural season had a fair shot at winning, because it was just those six that were there. So, but enough about inaugural season. That does it for grand finals 2022. Uh, Thank you guys so much for watching. Looking forward to this coming week. I think it's probably going to be one of the best grand finals yet. Best tournament of the year as well. There's nothing more to this other than the fact that most of these matches are going to be bangers past uh, winners round one and round two. Like once the fat had been trimmed, uh, it's going to be a really fun tournament. So, if Rudd, do you have anything else to say?
um, I can't really say that I do. Although I will say, maybe regretting not following my heart because now that I think about it, I followed my heart in 2018 and Spitfire had won. I followed my heart in 2019, Shock had won. Followed my heart in 2020 as well, Shock won again. And I mean, last year, didn't really work out for my heart. Uh, Ever so sad that none of the teams I wanted made it. But who knows? That's like what, 3 out of 4? That's good odds.
You know, we turned a new leaf last year. Now you suck at predicting grand finals. Oh well.
For
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.